Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that if you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission's decision. We advise you that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes from the previous meeting?
We have.
All right, is there a motion?
A motion to approve the minutes from the November 15th, 2018 meeting.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. We're going to pass over the next agenda item and go into the review of complaints, disciplinary issues. Mr. Fields, I see that the respondent in each of these complaints is American Melody Carriages.
Correct.
Are we taking them all together or one at a time?
There are some that are similar in terms of what the charges are, but
Yes.
we would not want to take them together from the standpoint of they are different charges, different days.
Okay. We'll start with the first complaint from Nashville Animal Advocacy against American Melody Carriages. And are there people who are going to give testimony in this matter? Mr. Highland, you're not giving testimony, are you? Okay.
Well, unless you want me to.
I wouldn't want to hurt your client's position. Those who are going to give testimony, if you'd come up and be sworn in, please.
I had a quick request, actually. We had some people who wanted to make like public comments re horse carriages. Would it be okay for them to do that during our?
Are they in pertaining to this complaint?
Not specifically this complaint, but you know, the horse carriages in general.
Okay.
Last time I was here.
And your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Trisha Lebketcher. I'm the executive co-director of Nashville Animal Advocacy.
Tricia what?
Lebketcher.
Can you spell that, please?
It's L-E-B as in boy, K-U-E-C-H-E-R. It's a lot easier to pronounce than it is to spell.
Okay. Betcatcher?
Lebketcher.
Lebketcher. Miss
Yeah.
Lebketcher.
Sure.
No, I want to stay specifically on this particular complaint. I did take with interest some of the general comments that were made at the last meeting by your organization, and there may be a time for that when we have a public hearing on the carriages, but today we're going to address the complaint by the Nashville Animal Advocacy against American Melody Carriages, please.
Okay, and I have some video too. I was wondering if it would be possible to plug in my computer to the HDMI cord, or I have an HDMI cord.
If you can make it work, we will do it. But could we get to the swearing in any witnesses that we have first, please?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's me since.
Are you going to be testifying?
I'm the one who's filing the complaint on behalf of Nashville Animal Advocacy, so.
Raise your right hand, please.
Sure.
Anybody else? All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. I didn't hear you.
I do.
Okay. Let's go.
All right. Hand you the computer?
Yeah, but...
Do we have a remote to that? I think Paul, but it's probably, yeah.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Oh, perfect.
Can you even see that?
I'm going to make it bigger.
Well,
No, I
I'll
mean
move.
from his view.
Yeah, no, I'll move when we do.
Okay, so we have several different complaints against American Melody Carriages.
Your Honor, excuse me, Commissioner.
Could-
It's on one complaint.
Right. This complaint we filed, it has both items listed, both the illegal parking issues and the no shoes issues. You can see in the complaint that we filed. Can you hit play again, I guess? This
What
was
we're addressing today is
parked-
going to be no shoes on the back of the horse's feet and the improper
parking. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can see parking here without, not being in front of a marked carriage stand in front of the Sbarro, just parked there. And then I have other videos of that too. Again, parked in front of the Sbarro, not at a marked carriage stand, noticeably in front of a fire hydrant. And then the no shoes.
Were both of those carriages from, there were two there, were they both from the same company? So that was the first one, but the second video you ran, there were actually two carriages.
Oh, sure, I can pull that one down. Well, I thought this one was the one. Sorry, I'm not like the most tech-savvy person.
So that's one carriage. Who's this other carriage just right there?
Yeah, I believe those are both.
If the commission please, we're having some coaching from the first girl back here to include just, she's the one testifying.
Yeah, I believe that they were both the red carriage and the blue carriage were both American Melody carriages. And then, of course, the main issue for us as an animal advocacy group is the lack of proper shoeing, which has been an issue with American Melody in the past. Let me pull up that video. As you could see, the horses did not have proper shoeing. I can pause it.
So when the horse lifts his hind legs up, is that not a shoe on the bottom of his hoof?
If you look at his right back foot, it does not appear that he's wearing a shoe.
Well,
I can't.
when he lifted the back left one, it appeared to be a metal shoe.
Well, all of the horse's feet need to be shoed. All of their
Right, right. I mean, I can't tell from that one, but I know if you just make it go forward a little bit, well, go back, I'm sorry.
No problem. Is this what you're talking about?
Another frame.
Okay.
It's going too fast.
Sorry. I might be able to slow it down. Does anybody know how to use
Okay.
a computer?
Let's start at the beginning on that again. Let's go, because I thought I saw the same thing on the back left foot. that
It did look like a metal
horse
shoe.
made, but I didn't know if it was an imprint or
See,
something.
I mean, it's not.
Should you just let it play without
Oh,
stopping?
sorry.
Start it again, please. Thank you.
Was this carriage inspected by anyone closely other than a passing video from the advocacy?
I mean, in several of the videos, you can see that the horses don't have shoes. I mean, it's plain to see in the video that they don't, that this particular horse does not have shoes.
So no one actually did go.
We don't have any
to the-
veterinary professionals on our staff. We don't actually have staff. We're all volunteer run, so.
No.
Just asking, do you have a lay witness who actually going to stand up here and tell us that what we just saw, there were no shoes on the back of the horse's feet? Because you gotta understand, I don't think anybody here on this commission could see clearly that there were no horseshoes on there.
Right.
I don't mean to speak for everybody, but.
No, that's the reason why I was asking.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say, like, you know, I'm not
Who took the video?
someone who, this is a video that Nashville Animal Advocacy obtained from, you know, it was sent to us about, you know, them not having shoes, so.
You don't know who sent it to you?
I am not, but this complaint was filed on, like, my behalf from another staffer at Nashville Animal Advocacy. I'm very busy. I work like 60 hours a week.
Understand that perfectly, but, you know, charges are being brought, so it needs to, you're working 60 hours a week. Part of this is, I guess your work week is to bring charges against,
No,
Melody
this
Carriages.
is me on my spare time.
Okay, but so, no one, just to be clear, what we have to go on as far as the shoeing are these two videos. Now,
3 videos,
Right, or the videos that you have. The parking in front of Sabero's is obvious. We saw
Right,
Sabero's.
right.
We saw that that was not
Right.
a carriage stand. For me personally, I could not say from your videos that there were no shoes on that horse.
Right. Well, I think, you know, I could try to see about upping the resolution, because I don't think it's really super clear on the television as it is on the computer that they don't have shoes in the video. But I'd be happy to, like, bring the computer around or something if that's...
And I guess my question is just, that's all we have is a video. No one actually inspected that horse.
Right. I did not look at the horse's feet very closely myself. That's not... I obviously cannot say that I did that.
Anything
since
else?
I did not. Nope, that's our complaint.
All right, Mr. Highland, do you have any questions of Ms.?
Sure.
Mr. Conlon, could you step over to the podium? I'm sorry, just for the microphone.
Videos?
I personally do not, no.
Has anybody told you who made those videos?
Yes.
Well, I noticed that today, while we're here, that you're sitting over here with a group.
Yes.
Have you had conversations with the folks from Mr. Smith's company, carriage company, with regard to this?
I have talked to him in passing on occasion, yes.
Okay, and in fact, is he the one that told you who Melody Carriage, American Melody Carriages was owned by and so forth?
I mean, I'm not sure who
Did he
American
tell you?
Melody
that it was-
Carriages is owned by,
But
but
it is American Melody, and that's what he told you, is that right? Or somebody from his group, is that right?
it was someone from our group who told me about the video and presented the evidence and said, these horses are not wearing shoes, you should bring that up, and I did,
All right, so somebody else took these videos.
yes.
They're not here. Are they here?
I don't know. I don't know who took the videos.
Oh, so the person that got these videos just gave them to you, and you don't know when they were taken.
Sir, and all due
Excuse me, do you know when they were taken? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes,
And how do you know when they were taken?
because there's timestamps on the videos.
Okay, and who took them?
Well, that, sir, I cannot tell you because I do not know, because we as an organization often get anonymous complaints towards all sorts of things from you know, you might have seen in the paper several years ago when we had the complaint against Trevecca's farm. You know, we have complaints constantly coming into our inboxes from people all over the world complaining about issues that they've seen with animals. And it is our civic duty as the only animal welfare and rights group in Nashville to bring complaints to light when we see them.
And is it true, ma'am, that you don't want any carriages, horse-drawn carriages, used in Nashville?
Yes, sir, I believe I have made that very clear in my previous statements.
I haven't heard your previous statements, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were here
So-
last meeting.
Well, I was, but I didn't hear those statements made, I'm sorry. So if somebody has an axe to grind for, let's say, the owner of American Melody Carriages for some reason, they can use you giving you...
Sir, we have complaints against
Ma'am, let me
every
finish.
carriage operator here in Nashville. The reason that we're only doing Melody carriages today is because that's how the agenda was laid out.
Have you filed any more complaints?
Yes, we have filed many more complaints.
Have you got them before, have you
Yes,
given them to Mr. Fields?
yes, they're on the agenda for next month.
Oh, okay. That's, and who are they? Is Mr. Smith one of the ones that you're filing against?
I believe we have one against him. I'm not sure. I would have to look at the paperwork. I only reviewed this paperwork for today because, as I said, I'm very busy. Yes, we have one right here against Southern Comfort, one right here against Kenny Hale.
Do they have to do with what do they have to do with parking? What?
I'm not sure how that's relevant to this specific incident.
I just want to be sure that the committee understands just exactly what we're talking about here. We've got a group that is just basically against any kind of use of any kind of animals in any kind of commerce. Is that right?
You know, it is...
Yes or no?
Well, yes. We do not believe that animals should be used for our entertainment, but beyond that, it's a public safety issue when carriage companies don't follow the rules. And, you know, if we're looking out for the best interests of these horses in our community, which we do and have for as long as Nashville Animal Advocacy has been around, then we have a moral obligation to bring up these issues when we see them against anyone we see them against.
And has anyone told you that this body has passed, about 2 years ago, has passed a resolution that horses don't necessarily have to be shod? Do you remember this? Have you heard that?
I don't believe that is the case.
Oh, you don't believe that they did?
I mean, I don't believe that you can have a horse. I mean, even if you think that it is, for some reason, you know, there's some sort of legal loophole that you cannot have shoes on a horse, it's not in the horse's best interest or safe for the community to have an improperly shoed horse in our city streets.
In your conversations with Mr. Smith and his group, has he not informed you that, yes, indeed, this group, this committee has passed such a resolution?
Again, like, I don't know why you think that I've had extensive conversation.
In your conversation with Mr. Smith and in his group, has anybody informed you, listen very carefully, it's a yes or no, has anybody informed you that this body had a resolution before it unanimously approved a resolution that did not require?
I have never heard of such resolution.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what I needed to know. That's it.
So, anything else that y'all want from me, or?
Do you need to further expound on anything based on Mr. Highland's questions?
Well, I mean, just that, you know, obviously, I think I made it pretty clear last meeting that we are an animal advocacy group first and foremost, but we also are all members of the Nashville community, and we are, you know, committed to the public safety issues involved with horse carriages, as well as we are about the horses' welfare. Obviously, as I stated in my letter that I handed to every single one of these folks here, we do oppose outright the use of carriages, but at the same time, we understand that it is currently legal. We understand that they have a legal right to operate these businesses, but that there are rules that they are obliged to follow, and many of these companies, I would say all of them, are misusing and disobeying the rules on various occasions, and we'd like to see this council or this committee take these issues more seriously.
I have another question.
Sure.
You said you had 3 videos. Was it just 3 saw, or
Those
did you have
three.
3
Those 3.
shoe ones?
Oh, we had those 3 videos with American
Oh, okay.
Melody carriages, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Fields, do we have our minutes from our June 28, 2018 meeting handy?
I do not. I can get it online, I think. We used to always put a minute book, I guess.
Paper, I can't tell.
Do you not have a copy of this?
I have a copy, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to verify.
2018,
Yes.
I don't think we have, so I might have.
I don't have that.
Were you present, ma'am, at our June 28, 2018 meeting, or
I do not believe so. I believe that I've only been to the 3 meetings. This one, the one in when was that? September?
I
And then
have,
the
I have
most
in my
recent
packet
one.
of information an unsigned statement. I'm assuming it's from you.
Nashville Animal Advocacy, yes. Yes, we have filed complaints previously, but the first time,
He thinks this is.
we had some representatives, I believe, here for some meetings earlier in the year, but the most recent one that I've attended, of course, was the one last month, and then I believe I attended one in September.
Mr. Hernandez, we're down here discussing, we were trying to figure out who this unsigned note was
It's from-
attached to. It looks,
That's an attachment.
I think it's
from
with
Forms and Legals.
Sugar.
Miss Zuniga's complaint, because that's it.
Yeah.
So this unshod, unbooted horses typed up note is attached to your complaint.
Did you prepare this statement?
Yes, I did.
Because it does say C attached on her.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can get to the website, I think they're referring at the commission meeting in June. I believe that's one where they chose no action at the June meeting. I don't have it. But we're getting to it.
Do we want to combine these 2 complaints for consideration of unshod, unbooted horses? Mr. Hernandez, did you see the video earlier?
I did not see the video.
Okay.
It looks like that the complaints brought against American Melody are for different dates, however.
They are. The video pertaining to the unshod, unbooted horses brought by Nashville Animal Advocacy, I think all members, all commissioners had a hard time being able to see that there was no horseshoes or shoes on the horses. The videos regarding the improper parking seem to be very evident.
I would just make a suggestion that it would be possible for you to take each allegation from each separate complainant kind of on its facts to determine whether or not there was evidence of a violation, and then decide what the discipline would be after and collectively based on any and all violations found to have occurred.
So your recommendation is, because they're different dates, to take each one individually and
Well, they're
then,
different complainants as well.
and then decide, if there is a violation, then decide the sanctions based upon.
So you're going to have 4 different witnesses who each have testimony to give in each of these complaints, yes.
Thank you. That's a good idea.
Does that need to be added as a recommendation as far as, do we all need to, does a motion need to be made?
I mean, I think that's more a question of process. So with regard to each of the individual complainants' complaints, you can kind of listen to the evidence and then make a determination of whether you think that evidence supports a finding that there was a violation of the Metro Code. And then if nobody makes a motion for discipline right away, you can always have someone make a motion for discipline if you find there were violations upon which to base any discipline. You could have someone do that after the 4 complaints have been heard in terms of the issue of whether or not there were any violations. Because you're not going to impose discipline unless you make a finding that there was a violation.
I think what Ms. Costonis is proposing makes a lot of sense. If somebody wants to make a motion regarding the complaint that was filed by Nashville Animal Advocacy, and we take up each one separately, first trying to make a determination if American Melody had proper shoeing on the horses' feet, and then we can decide if they were parked outside marked areas.
That part's pretty obvious from the video. I don't think you saw it, but it's parked right in front of Sabaro's. And that's not a carriage stand. The only part I think would even cause any debate is if there were actual some type of shoes on the bottom of the horse's foot. Just from the video, I know the first time I watched it on the left foot, I thought what I clearly saw, because of the color of it, was a shoe.
Well, I'd be happy to send you the videos as well if y'all have an email address for commission members.
This is your opportunity. We have not heard from Mr. Highland, though, as far as any evidence he wants to present in response to these complaints. We've had his cross-examination, and that's all so far.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. Mr. Highland, do you want to present your side?
Let me just say that if permission, please. It was pointed out, I believe, last week, I'm not going to talk about the shoeing, because that's been commented on by the commission. I will comment on the parking. I believe it was pointed out when some other people last meeting were accused, I think in the last meeting, were accused of parking in areas that were not designated. Pointed out, and I hate to quote Helen Rogers, we've been on opposite sides when she was sitting where you are. And she pointed out there are no regulations about parking, where you can park. Now, we've got a lot of carriages down there, and as the commission knows, those carriages block the carriage spaces where people pick up sometime. Well, the other carriages have to, in order to wait, have to stop somewhere. And even if we found that there was a carriage there, I don't think necessarily that it was identified as being American Melody, but even if it was, the two parked. I don't believe that there is a violation of any ordinance, because I do not believe that in this particular instance there's an ordinance that covers where these horse-drawn carriages can park.
It's 12.54.2.
Wait a minute.
I'm finished. If she wants to bring one up.
No, I have a question for you.
Yes.
And then I have a question after that.
Just to clarify, you know your horses and your carriages. Were those two horse carriages yours?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was pretty much my question, because it seemed like you insinuated that these may not be her horses.
There's just no testimonies to that. Until somebody asked her, there wasn't any, and she was very
Right.
upfront.
I just
said
wanted
that's
that
right.
to be clear.
And that's why I'm saying, whether it was or not, there's no regulation that says that that's not legal. I just don't believe there is.
Mr. Fields?
And I certainly would not want to speak for Mr. Highland. What I think he's referring to, if you review the ordinance, there is a reference or two of carriage stands, but our ordinance, we are not responsible to establish the horse carriage stands or loading zones of any kind. That falls within the Traffic and Parking Commission's authority. So it's an issue of, they would establish a loading zone for whatever they choose to have loading, and then they would have, I think, authority over those particular stands, whatever they are. Their cab stand is different. In the ordinance, it specifically talks about cab stands and how cab stands are established, but our ordinance is relatively vague on the issue of carriage stands. I think the most it speaks of is keeping the carriage stand clean.
So just as a point of clarity, if we were to find that the horses were not actually parked at a designated carriage stand, it is not within our jurisdiction to levy any type of discipline.
So I believe that what was cited in the complaint was a violation of 1254-200A11. That's troubling me a little bit for another reason, which is that that particular section is an allegation against drivers, and this particular complaint is asserted against American Melody Carriages as a certificate holder. But having said that, under 1254-070A2, disciplinary action against certificate holders, one of the bases for that is a failure to comply with provisions of this chapter. And 1254-200A11 is a provision of this chapter. 1254A11-200, or 200A11 rather, incorporates by reference other laws. It says, observe and obey all traffic laws and regulation of metro and state. So I assume that they're alleging that by parking in front of Sparrow, another traffic law of metro or state was broken.
So it would violate 1254-07A2 as a general concession that it encompasses the whole.
So you're kind of incorporating by reference something that's incorporated by reference. So 1254-200A11 incorporates other traffic laws, and then 1254-070A2 incorporates other provisions of this chapter, Chapter 1254.
So just for clarity, we actually do have a provision to levy some type of discipline for parking.
But yes, but I think we would also have to find that another traffic law was specifically broken by parking in front of Sparrow. I think that's what's missing from the equation.
Okay.
And there is no such reference.
Would the commission indulge me to see the video again where the two carriages are there, if you don't mind?
Yes.
And specifically, I'm looking to see if the second carriage has anyone in it. So if you can stop it when we get to the second carriage, I want to see if there's anyone sitting in the driver's seat.
Very, very old and back.
Do you need to turn the TV on?
TV's off.
Rules to say that, but right now the ordinance actually called Tether location.
That's what I want to see.
And it just says that they're set in consultation with the Traffic and Parking Commission, which is true. So maybe that implies that nothing can be tethered anywhere else, but it's not that clear.
Yeah, that's, unfortunately, I can't.
Well, just play it, because I think I can see it well enough. You can just play the thing.
Do you want me to play it again, or?
Back it up and just play it at regular speed, okay?
Oh, sure. From the second carriage?
From, yes.
Sorry. Okay, that's the first carriage.
Actually, that was the second.
one.
All right, here's first carriage, right? There's a person in there. Yeah, it looks like there is.
There's a person there.
Yeah, never mind. Thank you.
There was also a reference to being near a parking meter,
Fire
a
hydrant.
fire hydrant, sorry.
Yeah, do you want to see that again, or?
That'd be a violation of parking.
Does traffic and parking have designated areas for parking for carriages in their ordinances or their regulations?
So the closest thing there is, it's under routes in 1254-310C. There's a section that says the authorized routes and tether locations shall be subject to amendment as needed through consultation with the Metro Traffic and Parking Commission to ensure safe and efficient movement of traffic. So the Traffic and Parking Commission has set tether locations. I believe they're in front of the Hard Rock and on First Avenue across from Acme Feed and Feed. Is that right? And is there one more somewhere else?
There is, unless they've removed it on the opposite side of where Sbarro is, on the opposite side of Commerce, there has been one there. They may have removed that one now, I'm not certain.
So the carriages also have to follow the same rules of the road that other types of vehicles do. And Chapter 1240 of the Metropolitan Code, including Section 040, has a list of stopping, standing, or parking prohibited locations. And one of those does include within 15 feet of a fire hydrant.
Does Ms. Roberts have any, or want to offer any explanation why our carriages are parked in front of Sbarro's, in front of the fire hydrants?
As Mr. Highland pointed out earlier, there is another company that frequently takes up all the stands. Also, my drivers prefer to stay away from said company, so we try to park away from them. I mean, because it's constant harassment and hostile work environment type situations. They constantly follow us with cameras, as you can see, and just similar things like that. So we try to park away from them.
Is there any indication down there on the street that that's the no parking area?
Well, the fire hydrant itself.
Right next to it.
What's
See
that?
a fire hydrant, I do. But
It looked to me like there were some
we don't know how,
signs.
we don't know whether that's parking.
I believe it's a taxi stand right there.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that the horse is not moving. There's no motion as the camera goes by. That horse is perfectly still. That carriage is not moving. There's no customer on it, so it's standing there.
If I may also say that, obviously, we're always with our carriages. We don't just leave them. If a taxi pulls up behind us and we're in a taxi stand, obviously we move immediately. And obviously the same thing, if somebody needed to get to the fire hydrant, we're going to move right away. We don't normally pull that far up, but I noticed there was a big gap between the first and second carriage. So she's just up a little further than normal.
Well, in this video, there's only the one carriage. So this isn't.
You just played it and there were two.
There were two.
This was the.
No, this is the
This
one
is
with
the
the
one with
one.
only one.
This is the one with only one. The second one is the two. This only has one.
I think she started,
Here, I'll show you.
I think she started, there it goes. I think this is
It's just.
start and then it goes to the next one. Next is-
Well, this is only one. The second one, she's parked a little further back from the fire hydrant. It's a little bit in front of the carriage on the second one.
I'm happy to play this.
I would point out
This
that
is
there
the
is,
second video. It's a different time of
that
day.
there is a big difference. As the
See,
commissioner
there's the
said,
hydrant there.
There's a big difference between parking and standing. In this particular instance, they're under control of the driver. If anything were to be necessary for them to move, they'd move, just as she testified. And it's not a no standing zone necessarily, it's a no parking zone. I don't even think it's that.
So that is incorrect. 1240-040 does prohibit stopping, standing, or parking a vehicle within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, and also within 30 feet of a crosswalk.
What was that code again?
1240-040.
Ms. Roberts, do you dispute that your horses did not have shoeing on their back feet?
My horses have always been properly shod according to the rules that have been passed by this commission and the regulations that are written.
Since that has been asked, were you at any time under the impression that you were violating the rules of this commission in that you had been here and presented the argument against, for your contention, which was passed by regulation that they passed unanimously that hasn't been taken to the council, full council yet. Could you under the impression that that's what the rules were at the time these were taken?
Yes, sir.
I have one question. You're under
Can y'all
oath.
step up to the podium? I'm sorry, speak into the microphone, please.
Ms. Roberts, you're under oath. and-
Robinson.
I'm sorry, Ms. Robinson, you're under oath. You are testifying that your horses have always either had boots on them or had the proper shoeing on them when they're in operation.
No, I'm not testifying that because if you will remember at a previous meeting, 2 years after this commission unanimously approved a rule change, which has still not been submitted to council, I was under the impression that I was allowed to be working barefoot, and I did that for 2 years, believing that I was under the amended rule.
Is that horse that we just saw barefoot on the back?
She has boots on the front and she has shoes on the back.
Okay. So when we get to the next complaint, or the complaint at the end down here, where someone's going to come in here and say there were no shoes on your horses, you're saying that you may have to concede to that.
This complaint was like a month after that, I believe.
Just, so there are times when your horses are working without boots or shoes.
My horses have not been on the streets of downtown Nashville since August 18th, I believe, actually, the date of that complaint.
My question just is, are there times when your horses at any time were operating without shoes or boots?
Yes, there have been.
Okay, thank you.
This was previously before the board on that very, and according to the, since we're going to the next one, excuse me. According to the type complaint, Ms. Amigas, she was told that there was a grace period, that Mr. Fields had told her there was a grace period, in fact. When she made the complaint to him, there was a grace period for Ms. Robinson to get her horses shot. And have you made efforts to get that done?
Absolutely.
And have you been, since August, have you been down there with have you been down there at all?
No, sir.
I'll say down there, I'm sorry, broad. Have you, obviously you hadn't been down there at all. You have not been down there with animals that did not have shoes, is that right?
Absolutely.
And you are under the same understanding as Mr. Fields were, that you had a grace period to get it done.
I was under the understanding that I had a grace period to get into compliance.
And after the commission told you that no, you didn't have a grace period because it hadn't been presented to the council yet, still hadn't, I don't think, y'all's resolution, y'all being the commission, you pulled the animals off, is that right?
Yes.
And now you've been accused of having animals down there. The last, I think I believe, Mr. Blackburn accused you of lying here in the court, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you did not take well to that, did you?
No.
And you're under oath, and everything you've told the commission is true and correct. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Fields, was a conversation had in which there might have been some disillusion that there was a grace period?
I don't have the authority to deviate from what the ordinance requires. I don't recall that conversation. I do know that at the June meeting that a very similar issue was presented. The commission chose to take no action. How that could be interpreted is lots of different ways. She's referring to an ordinance that passed 2.5 years ago. It is part of a package that's going to the council. As you will recall, we have had many issues where we've tried to bundle them because that's the efficient way. It's also the way the council expects it. So that particular recommendation actually has to come back to you for a public hearing, and I hope that's going to happen in the next couple of months, along with several others pieces of legislation. But again, I can't say what somebody might have taken from what I said, but giving a grace period is not within my authority on any part of the ordinance that I'm aware of, unless it specifically says that.
Can I offer a little clarification here as well? The Metro Code itself, which is adopted by Metro Council by ordinance, has the provision 1254-240 that contains the requirement of, it says, be appropriately shod and trimmed and shall utilize rubber-coated pad or boots or open steel barium-tipped shoes or other shoes approved by a veterinarian, and that the horses must be inspected and maintained by a farrier at least every 8 weeks, or as necessary, records must be kept by the owner in the carriage of the dates and name of the farrier who shod the animals and are subject to inspection. If the horse loses a shoe while working, an easy-type boot may be used to finish the scheduled workday. So that's the current code language. The only entity that can change that language is the Metropolitan Council by ordinance. So when this issue came up before, the most that this body could have done was make a recommendation to council that those provisions be changed. Once this body makes a recommendation to council that provisions of the Metropolitan Code be changed, there are 3 ways of proceeding on that I can think of. One is that when a council member is listening and takes it up sua sponte. Another is that Mr. Fields, affirmatively brings a package of ordinances to the council that he and this body are recommending. And the third is that any private citizen can lobby their own council member to get legislation passed and sponsored. It appears that to date, that legislation has, as Mr. Fields said, been under consideration by him and in progress along with other matters that he's been working on. So it appears it has not, at this point in time, been submitted to council. But until it is, the code says what it says.
If the commission please, we agree it has not been submitted to council. We check every few weeks to see if it has. That's why she has not been down there. And she has not since August. And she has no way of earning any money. She's not down there.
So just to be clear then, on August 18th, 2018, then you were operating 2 horses without proper shoeing?
That is correct. They had boots on the front only.
Okay.
And shoes on the back, which is part, I think that's part of properly shod, or I think that's.
She did say there were shoes on the back before. I don't.
And that's what the ordinance provides, shoes or boots.
What's it?
And the police use boots. They're never on the street without boots.
Yes, rubber-coated pad or boots or open steel barium-tipped shoes or other shoes approved by a veterinarian.
So your 2 horses on August 18th had boots or shoeing in accordance with the regulation
Yes, sir.
on August 18th? Well, I don't think we need to hear from anyone else. I think we can now decide what we're going to do. Somebody make a motion regarding the complaint that's brought by Nashville Animal Advocacy. We've got 2 identified code sections that have been alleged to be violated. Ms. Costonis has clarified that we do have the authority under our regulations to find that if we want to find that American Melody Carriages was illegally standing in front of a fire hydrant, we could find a violation of 12.54070A2.
Actually, it's, I think it's, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
And then, of course, we could find, we need to make a decision on whether 1254-240A1 was violated as well.
If I might make one statement, there's nothing about a fire hydrant in the complaint. I don't know if y'all want to just amend her complaint, allow her to amend the complaint and put a fire hydrant in there. There's not one in there.
Well, it's encompassed in the complaint that says the marked carriages were on the stand on Commerce Street in front of Saberos.
Right. That's
So,
anything about the fire hydrant.
part of them being, well, the fact that it says parked outside of Saberos is part of the complaint that it was parked in an improper area.
Mr. Highland, at this point, do you feel your client is prejudiced if we were to consider the fire hydrant, given her statements here today and the videos we've seen?
That's a good question.
Yeah, of course you'd be prejudiced because it was there, depending on how y'all decide what you decide to do.
No, obviously, if we find a violation, she's prejudiced, but in your defense of her today and given her admissions today and the videos that we've seen, is your presentation today prejudiced at all?
Well, if I,
Because I've heard her explanation.
right, and she's admitted it.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not going to go back around, try to get her to say something that's not true. But we weren't here prepared to talk about fire hydrants.
I would like to make a motion at this time that, given the complaint again from the Nashville Animal Advocacy, that we hear the complaint separately, one being the complaint for proper shoeing and one being the complaint against proper parking.
Is there a second?
I'll second reviewing them, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
I'll make a motion that we find there was no violation of 1254-240A1 regarding improper shoeing or improper booting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion finding that there was an actual act of illegal parking using section 1254-200A11, and that that in both instances in the video, one being video 1, the second one being video 2, that there was in fact a carriage parked out in front of Saberos blocking a fire hydrant.
And Mr. Carr, I'd like to just make sure we have your motion reference the right regulation section. I believe Ms. Costonis has advised us that if we wanted to find a violation of 1254-200A11, that we would also need to find a violation of 1254-070A2.
I would like to amend that to include 1254-07A2 as part of the violation.
Is that part of the original complaint?
It is not.
It is not, but it's, I'm just going to say it's a matter of discretion by the commission to interpret how, if we do in fact find there is an illegal standing in front of a hydrant, that we make sure that if you take this up on appeal, that it's clear to the court of which section we're considering as being violated.
And it will be clear that it's been amended before the hearing, before the final decision. That's fine. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's something you should do, but I understand what you're doing.
The issue is that the 1254-070 is addressed at disciplinary action toward the certificate holder, whereas 1254-200 is addressed at disciplinary action or conduct prohibited on the part of a permitted driver.
So I believe we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Does anybody want to make a motion regarding disciplinary action with regard to violation that we just found? Or do we want to take up Ms. Zuniga's complaint?
I like the idea that we hear all these complaints before we make a decision on whether there's been a violation or not, and then consider any, if necessary, any sanctions thereafter.
All right. I think that's
I agree.
entirely fine. So we're going to reserve ruling on any disciplinary action, Mr. Highland, and hear from Ms. Kama Warren Zuniga next.
Mr. Chairman, Gary Blackburn. I want to...
Please step in front of the podium. We're just having some sound issues, I'm sorry.
Oh, over
Yeah,
here?
to the microphone, yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that better? Mr. Chairman, I know that a moment ago you were looking for the minutes of the June meeting. My recollection, I was present, my recollection was that there was a complaint about American Melody not having shoes, but there also, the context of all that was the question about rubber shoeing. And I remember there was a lot of discussion about in Charleston, South Carolina, all their horses were shod with rubber shoes. There was discussion about that subject. Ms. Robinson, is it Robson or Robinson? Oh, that's helpful. American Melody was alleged not to have had shoes, and she was given very explicit directions that day by this commission that that we're not going to punish you today, but you are not to be on the streets without shoes hereafter. The first photographs we had, I had asked that from this video, 2 photos be made and enlarged. We have a number of persons here who can be sworn, who can confirm, who have one answer testimony to give about whether they've seen these horses that were not shod.
They should probably be sworn if they're going to testify.
Thank you.
Pardon?
Not you, the witnesses.
Yes.
Yeah, if you have any
They're here,
witnesses,
if we're
we
going
can
to sort of
swear
do
them
this
in.
all at once, is that the,
Yeah, I'll do
Okay.
one swearing.
all right. And then, as it happens, Mr. Smith is a certified farrier, and he can testify to his observations and what they mean. So, with council's suggestion, those who are going to give that testimony, would you please rise and be sworn? Johnny, you too.
If you'll please repeat after me, I swear or affirm
I swear or affirm
that the testimony that I'm about to give
the testimony I am about to give
is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, first, Ms. Zuniga, is that the way to pronounce it? Zuniga. I want to show the commission these 2 pictures. What were they taken from?
My cell phone.
Okay, and,
I have stills on the computer too, sorry, my ink cartridge.
all right, were these printed from what you're about to show us in video?
Yes, here's
And what was the date?
it was July,
June.
I'm sorry, June 29th, 30th, and July 2nd.
So, and the
And there's no shoe on this foot at all. This is a front foot, no boots.
now, hang on just a minute. I want to tender these 2 pictures, which are still shots from this video, and then we'll play the whole video. Okay? I can approach. Now, if you look at that picture, you will see plainly there's no shoes, and you will see cutting or abrasions in the hoof itself. That is a product of working the horse.
I would object to his testimony.
that is a product of working that animal without shoes, and we'll have testimony
Oh,
of that.
overruled.
All right. Would you play the video, please? Now, pause that just a moment if you can. Can you go back to the previous picture? All right. Were you present that day when this photo was taken?
Yes, this was taken June 30th.
All right. Now, can you point to the hoofs and the pavement and tell the commission what you see?
There are no shoes on this horse, and because if there was a shoe on this horse, there would be a lift. You could see a gap between the foot, the cornet band, and the asphalt, and you would see a metal shoe. There are no shoes on this horse's feet.
All right. Go ahead.
It's a little bit farther away, proving that it is American Melody Carriages.
Okay. Now, is this another day?
Yes, this is another day.
What day is this?
This would be the 30th
Of June.
of June, yes.
All right. Now, can you point to the characteristics on that right hoof that suggest that there's, or demonstrate there's no shoe?
You would see the silvering or the metaling of the shoe, and you can see the white line, which a shoe would cover because of the width of the shoe.
Okay. Go ahead.
You'd be able to see the cleats.
Continue.
Is this the same carriage? Oh, well, that's the carriage.
And you can see on the back feet as well, go back a little bit, that the back feet have no shoes as well.
Now, the question the commissioners were raising was the one that I have. I'm not a trained person in horses. What do you see there that shows there's no shoe? Right
Right
there, look
here?
at that one, right.
There's no, you can see the what? If there's a shoe here, this would be covered with the shoe. You would not see this.
What is that?
That's the white line of the hoof.
All right, go ahead.
This is one of her other horses working with no shoes or boots on the 30th
The 30th of what month?
June. And you can see, let's move it up a little bit. You can see the white of the hoof.
In your testimony, you're saying that it was 90 degrees that day?
Yes.
Yes, it was up in the 90s. We can work until it hits 95 degrees.
Well, perhaps the point of the question
go.
is, was the, excuse me, the asphalt gets heated?
Yep. And you can see there's no shoes on the back feet of these horses' hooves either. These are the back for horses' feet. If I go catch it just right, you can see when the horse picks up its foot.
All right.
I can't get it to do it, I'm not quick enough. But
All right, stop, just hold up. The part right here, what does that indicate?
the wear down from the rubbing, as they stuff their feet as they walk. And I have to hold on a second. There's some chipping right here from the wear of the feet.
Chipping of the hoof?
Yes, because there's no shoes. These feet are severely chipped, and you can, if these horses had shoes on, you would see the nails, the nail heads coming through. And there's no nail heads, and they're severely chipped.
What's this date?
That's after the 30th of June. Unfortunately, with the line, you can't see here, but the hoof is severely worn down from the lack of no shoeing. Also, previously Melody testified that Metro horses are shod. I actually spoke to Metro Mounted and got an email back from them. And this is their email. Metro.
I've got to object to that. I'm sorry, I can't cross-examine that.
Oh.
That's hearsay.
Overruled.
Okay.
Can you read it? I can't
Metro
read it.
Mounted police horses are on shod. However, we do place protective boots on the horses when patrolling downtown and special events. We are currently using Cavalier boots. And if you have any further questions, to feel free to contact me, Sergeant Luke Matthew, Metro Nashville Police Department.
What's the date?
This was dated Wednesday, July the 4th.
Go ahead.
This is Metro's horses. They are not shod. I think this is my favorite horse on top of it, a Roscoe, which it is a Roscoe. He is a Tennessee walking horse, and he has all 4 boots on his feet. There's another one that I took of them working with all 4 feet booted. And that's the email I just read to you.
Do you have any more horse video?
I do.
Will they show the same thing that you're showing here?
It'll show the same thing, but it'll also show the inspector sitting across the street watching her, doing nothing about her on-shod horses.
All right, well, that's not our mission today.
That's not my mission, sorry,
All right.
but it's the same thing.
All right. Thank you. Now, have a seat. All right, I ask those who were going to confirm that you have personally seen these horses during this time period working without shoes to be sworn. So if you would, one at a time, stand up and state your name.
You'll need to come before the podium.
My name is Samantha Walsh, and I watch all the horses downtown, whether they're Sugar Creek or any company, because they can blow a shoe and it happens. And American Melody does boot her horses on the front, but they are not shoed or booted on the back. If that horse slips and falls, it's going to take a crane or a truck to get that horse back up. It's a serious safety issue for any animal downtown.
All right, the question is, have you seen those horses operating downtown during this time period without shoes?
Yes.
Thank you.
What time period, I'm sorry?
These were all the 29th, 30th, and July the 2nd, and July 2nd.
My name is Tina Doherty. My name is Tina Doherty. I too have seen these horses working downtown without shoes.
Ms. Doherty, you're also the complainant in the complaint here today, right?
I am.
Mr.
Ms. Blackburn, who is Ms. Walsh?
She is a permitted driver for Sugar Creek.
Okay.
Doing these other folks, I want to ask that too, if I could. So,
You'll get a chance.
I understand.
I think given the admission and given the obvious photographs, it may not be necessary for Mr. Smith to confirm, but he is available if you have any questions. He is a trained farrier. I would point out, too, that we were pleased to announce last month that we had substantially worked out a plan to settle differences and so forth. You notice today there's no complaints among these entities at all here today. These charges have been pending for several months, and we're just here to get that aspect of this completed.
Could I address all of the, I assume I need to address everybody at once as far as cross?
You can address however you feel is most efficient.
Can anybody that testified just a few moments ago by standing up here and saying that, is anybody in here not a person who is employed by Mr. Smith?
Actually, I'm not employed by Mr. Smith.
Who are you employed by?
I'm an independent contractor. I'm employed by myself.
Do you drive for Mr. Smith?
I'm an independent
Do
contractor.
you drive for Mr. Smith?
No, I do not. I drive for myself.
Okay. And why are you here? What, are you an independent, when you say that, you're a licensed
I am a licensed.
carriage operator?
Yes, I am. To the city of Nashville.
All right.
Whose carriages do you use?
I lease the carriages from Sugar Creek Carriages.
Mr. Smith? Thank you.
Now, this says that the company you work for is Sugar Creek Carriages.
That is your wording on your paperwork.
But you, that's what's on what you signed, is that, ma'am, is that what you signed? Do you sign this? Okay, that's
I'm an
all
independent
that, that's
contractor
what
for
she's
Sugar
asking.
Creek Carriages.
Very good. You should be quiet.
Now, let me ask this, just one more thing, and then I'll be through.
You just impeached
This is the attachment to your complaint, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it says here, Mr. Howard advised me that per Mr. Fields, now this is Howard, is that Butch Howard?
I believe that's what his first
Okay.
name is.
That's the person who was down there watching that was the representative from TLC, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And it says that per Mr. Fields, Melody was given time to get shoes or boots on her horse. Is that right?
Yes,
This
but
was
if
on
you continue to
June
read, but
20
per the TLC meeting, that was not allowed, and Mr. Fields admitted there was no grace period.
On June 28, 2018, that's when this happened, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
On June 29th. But also, Mr. Fields just testified and said that there was no grace period given. And the TLC counsel at the June 28th meeting stated that she was not to return to work until she had proper boots or shoes on those horses immediately. Upon which she did. The following day, she returned to work with no shoes or boots on her horses.
Anything else, Mr. Allen?
Y'all will,
Is there something she would like to add that we haven't already heard?
I think so. We have to,
Yes. We also have a complaint by Samantha Walsh against American Melody Carriages. We'll take that up next.
I didn't realize she was also here too.
You've already been sworn. Just tell the commission what your complaint is.
On June 22nd, it was about 9 o'clock at night, I noticed that one of American Melody's carriages was parked in the roundabout on First and Broadway. They had no lights on, and per the ordinance, the carriages are actually required to have 2 independent batteries, 4 backups, and safety lights. That way the carriages are properly lit and can be seen in traffic.
Is there a photograph of that?
I believe Ms. Cam is playing right now.
Point out the carriage if you can.
Yeah.
Right there?
Yes. I was on the First Avenue stand in my carriage.
Is that in what we've been calling
The roundabout, yes. I'm not sure what it's actually
Where
called.
the train station is?
Yes. Down on Riverfront Park.
now, if the commission, please. The second one, Walsh, it's the same day at the same charge.
It was amended.
Pardon?
I amended it and wrote it up at the top.
What?
That I had amended it of, it's one charge.
I don't see electric lights. Are there reflectors?
Not that I could see. But I have seen that carriage lit up at night before, and it does have rear red lights when it has batteries to operate it. Which, as you can see in this, they're not lit up and it's clearly dark.
It's my understanding there's supposed to be a symbol on the back.
Yes, a rear reflector, yes.
Do you see one?
I do not.
Any questions of this
Yes,
witness?
I got it. Ma'am, it was operating, is that right? It was sitting there, not moving?
It was operating earlier in the day, yes, but at that time it was not.
And that's when you took the pictures of the lights being on?
The video, yes.
Okay. And do you know why the lights were off?
Well, later on,
Do you know why the lights were off? Then you can tell me.
yes.
Why?
Well, later on, a battery was brought to that carriage.
And the lights were turned on, is that right?
Yes.
And so she was there, parked, in order to wait for a new battery for her lights. And both of these, June 22nd, yours and Ms. Walsh and Ms. Doherty both.
I do not speak for Ms. Doherty, I speak for myself, and I have one
Excuse me.
complaint.
Excuse me.
No.
Please. Pardon?
Do not sit there and say both. I speak for myself, I do not speak for Ms. Doherty.
But if Ms. Doherty says that June 22nd is the date that she saw no lights on it, on this carriage, it's the same occasion, is that right?
Then you'll have to ask her.
June 22nd is when you filed yours, right?
For mine, yes.
Okay, and hers is June 22nd also, right?
I don't know, you'd have to look at her paperwork.
And she was, there's no question, she was waiting until she was able to get her carriage in compliance.
Yes, but the ordinance also states that she should have two batteries, one is a redundancy for this effect.
That's all I have. And she got the other one, right? It came down there and they turned the lights on, right? And then she went about her business, is that correct?
To the best of my knowledge.
Okay, that's all.
Did she bring a rear reflector?
Not that I saw.
Is that a roadway area? What's she in?
It's the riverfront roundabout. It's cobblestone at the light on First and Broadway.
All right. All right. Thank you. The other?
Do you want to,
You know, we,
Right, somebody else is bringing it up.
Well, we're trying to dispose, these have been around, I'm just trying to get them all
It's all the
disposed
same,
of.
it's all the same.
you don't have an objection to going ahead and hearing from Ms. Doherty? All right.
Actually, mine is,
State your name for the record.
I'm Tina Doherty. Mine is slightly different. It was a little bit after that. I was not working on a carriage, I was driving my car. And I had pulled into the roundabout. And I had seen the carriage there about 7:30. And I saw it there still when I pulled in after 9 o'clock. She had no lights on. Then you'll see Melody pull up and park next to her and get out. And then at this point, I had to go because a bus was coming. I was picking up passengers in my car.
Would you Uber?
Left.
Lyft?
Now, neither one of those vehicles, the car or the carriage, is even supposed to be there. That is permit parking only for the pedal taverns.
Go back, can you, I see the blinking lights of the car. Can you point out
That's,
the carriage?
she identified that as being
That was the carriage?
no, carriage was next to it. I'm testifying now, so maybe I'll.
Can you satisfy the commissioner's question? Just point out what is what.
Oh, it's the white, right there.
That's the carriage on the right. That's the car.
The blue car is my client's car.
I see.
Come into, it's all be better.
Is there a reflector on the rear of this carriage?
No,
No reflective device?
no.
Right, Mr. Highland, do you have any further questions?
No. I'll call them on. Were there two batteries on this carriage?
Yes, sir.
Why did you have to bring another one?
They
Or
were,
did you bring another one?
I did bring another one. They were both dead. One had gone dead. We thought they were both charged. One had gone dead, which is why she pulled off into a safe area. Also, not in a carriage stand so that she wasn't blocking other carriages. Also, this carriage has a locked trunk, and I had forgotten to give her the key so that she could even switch the battery.
Now, was there you saw the picture there, was there a reflector on the back of that carriage?
Yes, there is.
Thank you. All right, I think we need to take up then Ms. Walsh, Ms. Doherty's, and Ms. Zuniga's complaint. It looks like we can distill the complaints into one involving the lack of use of boots or shoes on the rear feet, and in terms of Ms. Zuniga's complaint, and then of course Ms. Walsh and Ms. Doherty are bringing the same complaint arising from a lack of lights and a lack of reflective gear on June 22nd in the evening.
Do I understand correctly, the section is 12.54.240A1 for no shoes or boots?
I think it's B1.
I thought it was 1254-240A1,
I believe it's 1254-240B1.
B1.
1254-240B1.
Do you want me to read it again? A permittee with a horse used in horse-drawn carriage must adhere to the following regulations and conditions. Be appropriately shod and trimmed, and shall utilize rubber-coated powder boots or open steel barium tip shoes or other shoes approved by a veterinarian.
So 1254-240B1.
Yes.
All right. I make a motion on the complaint regarding Ms. Zuniga that there was a violation of 1254.240B1 on June 29th, June 30th, and July 2nd by Melody Carriages.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
Pertaining to the no lights out, the explanation I heard, and in fact it's in the complaints as well, that the battery died. The driver pulled over to the nearest safe spot. The battery was brought down there to be installed to get it back in compliance. In the practice of law, there's a thing called the defense of necessity. Sometimes you have to pull over to a person's boat dock even though you're trespassing because of safety concerns and things of that nature. I make a motion that we find there was no complaint on the complaint brought by Tina Daughtry for the not having the proper lights on the carriage. I make a motion to dismiss that complaint.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
I make the same motion in regards to the complaint brought by Ms. Walsh, to find that there was no violation, no intentional violation of the code section.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. So now we're brought back to deciding any disciplinary issues with regard to the violation that we found that was brought by Nashville Animal Advocacy regarding the illegal standing, and then also Ms. Zuniga's complaint with regard to the violation of 1254-240B1.
Okay, and what I understand is that we're looking at a improper parking, and we're looking at the violation for not having the proper shod boots or shoes on the horse. And that's 1240-240B1 for the shoes, and
Yes.
1254-240, 1254-070A2, which takes us over to
54-200-A11.
Okay. 1254-200-A11.
It's 07-200-A11. 200A11.
Okay, 12.
Which if you want to go really far, in turn, we looked at 1240.040 in terms of the prohibition on parking or standing in front of a hydrant or within 15 feet of a hydrant.
That's 1240.040.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's for the standing.
Mr. Fields, how do you assess the credibility that there was some confusion as to compliance with the shoes and the boots?
I don't believe there should have been any confusion over shoes. I know that there's a great desire to make changes to the ordinance. Our role, or your role, and my role is to deal with public safety. We try to work through your request as quickly as we can. Could she have confused? I don't know. You'd have to speak to her directly on that. I think the ordinance is the ordinance, and it says that you're supposed to be shoes.
From what I've been told, and you can correct me if I misunderstood what you said, we don't necessarily have the ability to change a rule. But
The code.
The code, I'm
Yes.
sorry. But as I was sitting here, I was thinking that this would be a lot easier if all of the shoes were the same color and they were brightly colored. And I actually looked up horseshoes, and there are horseshoes that are bright orange and bright red, and a myriad of other colors. And so I just don't know if that's something that we want to put in motion for council to consider, or however it needs to be passed down. Because I just think that if we could look on there and it's either orange or it's not. Just throwing that out there for consideration.
Then I also factor in that the Nashville Animal Advocacy had proof that Melody Carriages were operating on August 18, 2018, even though we did not find a violation of the unshod horses.
What is, and this is directed toward legal, what are our options for disciplinary action?
Sorry. 1254.070A, it says the commission may place on probation, suspend, or revoke a certificate holder if it is determined that the certificate holder or any driver operating on behalf of the certificate holder has, and then there are various different grounds, but the one that you spoke about is failed to comply with provisions of this chapter.
And that's for 5407A2?
Yes. So A2 is specific to fail to comply with provisions of this chapter, but 070A just sets forth the three options. Well, there's four options. There's probation, suspension, revocation, and I suppose you could also do nothing.
You said that you haven't been operating since August, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You said that you haven't been operating since, or?
That is correct. I have not been downtown operating the carriage. I haven't been downtown since August.
Is there, what is the reason why you haven't been operating?
You need, if you could come to our podium, please. Thank you.
It is my personal belief, through much research, that it is not in the best interest of of any horse, actually, to have shoes on their feet. So,
Was this brought up before the board? Is that why the board, what the board heard before they passed the resolution that went to, supposed to go to council?
that didn't go to council.
Didn't go to council.
Yes.
So then you're essentially waiting on this to go to council before you start operating your business again?
I am also trying to get boots for the horses. I mean, a boot Shoeing a horse is the least expensive and easiest and fastest thing to do. But as I said, I don't believe it's in their it's not good for them. I'm in the process of trying to get boots for all of my horses, but it's very time consuming and it's extremely expensive. One boot is $100, so that's $400 per horse. And that's, that also depends on what type of shoe, boot that you get. Like the police mentioned Cavallo. I have those for two of my, the two horses that you saw in the video, actually. But I still have to get the back boots, and they have to be measured like precisely, because if they're not fitted properly, the boot is going to spin. It's going to cause. It's like you have a tennis shoe that's not, the right size, and you're walking around in it. And I'm not going to do that to them either.
Are you operating anywhere?
I am doing special events outside of Davidson County.
Mr. Fields, what's the history of compliance or non-compliance with Melody Carriages?
The commission has, the last time she was here in June, you found, you did not take any action on the complaint that was in front of you. That was the very last time. Prior to that, there was an issue regarding insurance. You chose not to take any action on that either, as I recall.
When was the insurance?
It was an insurance issue.
When was it?
That was a year ago.
Yeah, about a year. And again, you chose not to take any action on that
In
either.
June, the complaint was about not having the horses properly shod.
Correct. It was brought by the, it was not a staff complaint. It was similar to this one.
I believe it's one of the same people.
Same shoes.
So the allegations that Ms. Zuniga made about you being under an impression you had a grace period, that was not your impression. Your impression was that the resolution that this body voted on in order to make a recommendation to the council, you thought that was going into effect immediately?
After the meeting where it was brought to light that I was operating, that the rule had not been submitted to council and I was not operating as I thought lawfully, then I thought that I was under the understanding that I had, obviously a misunderstanding, that I had a grace period to come into compliance, which I did. I mean, as I told Mr. Highland, I immediately had an appointment with my farrier because, like I said, the boots have to have the foot has to be precisely measured, mostly in millimeters, and I don't know how to fit them myself. And he's very familiar with all the companies and sizes and measurements and all that. So I had an appointment with him. And also I have a receipt where I ordered 2 more boots shortly thereafter to work on getting all of my horses, well, the 2 that were working, into compliance.
And pursuant to you not being able to work downtown, does that cause you any economic problems?
I've had to sell my home of 20 years, yes.
Can I ask you what gave you the impression from that meeting that you had a grace period? Was there anything that was said during that meeting that gave you that impression?
I just remembered it that way. I don't know why. I can't say that there was anything specifically said. But the reason that I did end up pulling my horses off and not working anymore and realizing that I did not have a grace period is because I went back and watched the meeting on video, and it was clearly stated that I was not supposed to be there, so I did take them off at that time.
When is that time?
The last day that I worked was August 18th.
Is it your intention to buy boots for all of your horses before you put them back on the streets in Metro Davidson County?
Yes, sir, either that or hopefully the council would get the proposed rule change and hopefully pass that. But I'm obviously not going to go down there anymore without boots, and as I stated before, I don't feel like shoes are the best thing for my horse, for any
So you're
horse.
in perfect understanding at this point that there is, without a shadow of a doubt, no reason whatsoever for your horses to be in Metro Davidson County without some form of shoeing.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask for clarification. I think the horses can be without shoes in Davidson County, they just can't be working as
I'm sorry.
carriage.
Right.
Working, I'm sorry, I was under the assumption we were all to the conclusion of what we're talking about. Without working horses, and that is, you are perfectly clear.
Yes, sir.
Not just front, not just back, not 3, not 2, not left, front, left, right, but all.
Yes, sir. That is why I have not been back since August.
I'll bring up one other observation, that is that since August 18, 2018, there is not another complaint in here alleging any violation since August 18, 2018. That's been, almost 5 months, 4 months? So, and I believe, given the self-policing that the carriage industry is engaging in, that we would see a complaint today of another violation had there been one since August 18th. All right, I make a motion under 1254-070A2, or A in general, that we suspend the permit of Melody Carriages for 30 days and then followed by 6 months probation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that would commence on January the 1st and on January 31st, or immediately, from now to January 13th. You could do it immediately for 30 days, or you could,
I would make the suspension of 30 days, I make a motion that to amend the motion, I guess.
we're just going to set.
That the
I just
30-day
wanna make-
suspension commences immediately today, with probation followed thereafter.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That concludes our complaints for today. Next item on our agenda, we have a public hearing. We've been asked to review the LSV rules regarding operational boundaries and rush hour operations.
When, one of the things that I often do is say, this is relatively simple. And it always gets me in trouble. However, this fits in with a study that we have done. There's 2 parts here. The operational boundary, the issue is being able to extend the operational area for all of the LSVs to include the area of Topgolf, which is off of Jefferson Street and Dickerson Road in the Calvin Street, on Calvin Street. So basically what it would do, it already touches it, it's contiguous to what's already existing. It would give them access to that new entertainment area. That would be a very general issue for the LSV industry. The second is providing a street corridor for Joyride, which is whose business is now just outside the operating area. They've lost their lease, like many people have done, in the downtown area on 3rd and 4th. 4th? Second. I was close. Anyway, in the Sobro area, they had a very prime piece of property where they stored their vehicles, and they had the headquarters. They've been forced to move further from the downtown area, and they are right outside. They have a corridor. Using my authority, for good or bad, and in conversation with the chair, I determined that I would give them a temporary easement, so to speak, to allow them to get from the operating area to their business and not be in violation. not to do business, not picking up people along the way and so forth. They could obviously have people meet them at their headquarters, which is not unusual. Then the other issue on the time was something that you had taken up at the September meeting, I believe, one of the September meetings, that provided relief for all the LSVs from the rush hour restrictions till the December meeting to see if there were any operational problems and issues. So the public hearing is two-part, to consider an expansion of the area for those two that we talked about, as well as consideration of lifting the restrictions for low-speed vehicles during rush hour.
Good afternoon.
So, again, it would require an opening of a public hearing.
I'm the founder of Joyride. Oh, sorry.
Back to the chairman.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
there was also, I remember receiving, and I believe, Mr. Fields, you circulated to the commission an email from the Hillsborough Village Neighborhood Association.
The Hillsborough Village folks did email, they would prefer that no expansion for anybody be allowed into the Hillsborough neighborhood for operations and tours and so forth. And I must admit, it's probably here, I just don't have it right in front of me.
I have it in front of me now.
Okay.
Is
No, I
that,
do have it.
are the low-speed vehicles currently operating in the Hillsborough Village neighborhood area?
I'm gonna look up, I don't think they are. I think that's outside that area. I will consult the map, as you're doing the public hearing, I'll certainly consult the map and see if I can verify that.
Hillsborough Village, what business is
It's past
Oh.
Vanderbilt.
close to Belmont,
Just
right?
south of Vanderbilt, just south of Vanderbilt.
Yeah, we try not to service
I
that
don't
area
think
anyway.
there's,
I don't think-
it may be within the area.
I think it's in the area, but, what is that?
Anyway, in order to take any action, you'll
It's going to
require
be
a
over by
public hearing.
Belmont.
Yeah, the only time we're ever over there is if we're taking a Belmont student back. We don't police that area or travel in that area.
All right, so we'll go ahead and start the public hearing. We'll hear from Joyride. I do also have a request to speak by Mr. Eddie Garcia. So.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I'm Chris Osmore, the founder of Joyride. Our address was approved by the council when we moved. It just wasn't added into our service area. I thought that was an understanding if you approve the address, that your address is inside the boundaries of some sort. So, and that's the reason we just wanted to go ahead and get clarification on that. We just moved from 2nd Avenue over to the Gulch, close to where Party Foul and Poorhouse is. We're just on the other side of the bridge behind Gray Bar on South Street, which is better for us because our golf carts don't have to travel through the city to get to, we're more centrally located in the city now. So when we come out of our office, if we turn left, we go down 12th Avenue into the Gulch, and then that's it. So it's actually a lot better place. We're off the beaten path. There's no traffic over there. We have street parking, which a lot of people are figuring that out. It's free street parking over there right now. So, and then we're going to go over the app data today. I know he tentatively approved Topgolf just because we were dropping people off kind of on the corner. That way we wouldn't go outside of our boundaries. They would like us there. And then that, to open that whole corridor. Really, it's just that one particular Topgolf right now. They are building a hotel there, just hasn't broke ground yet. So, but yeah, the address change, Topgolf, and then if anybody wants to discuss the app data, I'm welcome to do that too.
Which we also, one of the things they talked about was being prepared this month to provide data so you could have additional information to make decisions in the future.
Mrs. Sizemore, have you talked to Topgolf about using their facility as a roundabout for dropping off people?
Yes. We met with them yesterday or the day before? Tuesday. But we've met with them prior years. And before we even knew that they were even going to exist, we met with them when they first opened.
What's their response?
Oh, they're going to wrap some vehicles. They're waiting to make sure they can be added. Tentatively, we didn't tell our drivers because he tentatively approved us being able to drop off people there, and I didn't tell our drivers because I didn't want any confusion right now until y'all accepted it. But
So we don't have anything in writing from Topgolf?
Oh, I can get something in writing. I didn't know that was the issue.
Yeah.
But we could easily get that if need be.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Well, I can expound on that. I think Chris is going to address more of the data app, but as I'll just briefly expound on it. So we have reached out and met with Topgolf. Travis Miller is their GM, Director of Operations. As you all may know, may not know, the city is considering expanding that entire corner as construction is just rampant in the city. But we wanted to incorporate that, not just for Topgolf. When it was added, Topgolf was not in existence. So if you can, I think I attached a Google Map excerpt. While we're doing heart surgery, then we can look at the lungs and the spleen. So Mr. Fields and I, when we first talked about it and the temporary approval, the river at the western boundary, Cowan Court, not Cowan Street, Cowan Court because that's the northern boundary, where riverfront, there's a marina being discussed and a whole array of new development in that area. Mr. Fields and I just threw out Dickerson for just a matter of visual boundary as the eastern boundary. Currently now south of Jefferson includes Oldham Street, but I just wanted to put that in there because we also met with the CEO of the family-run Little Harpeth Brewery, which is on Oldham, so we can include that entire quadrant to be able to transport people. With respect to the HQ, as Chris said, we moved to 833 9th Avenue South, just behind the Gray Bar Plumbing Building off 8th Avenue. Many of you may not know or may know that there's a lot of development in that area. Split Rock Development has built 35 to 45 new HPRs. So the tentative grid that I submitted for that, while we're approving the headquarters site, would be the 8th Avenue, and I think it goes a little further to Olympic Street and comes and loops back down to encompass all those new developments, including our headquarters. Again, the same argument for the first one is this is, while we're there, there's 45 plus new residents moving in there, whether they own or rent, that we would be given the same opportunity as Uber, Lyft, and taxis and sedans that are given, so we can transport those folks to their respective locations.
Yeah, it's not our plan to just keep trying to grow this. We're only letting you know we're receiving ride requests and things like that. And the map is pretty close. It's almost there that we could transport almost everybody in the city and not have complaints from the people that ride with us or anyone else. So so Topgolf is just adding that little bit just because whenever we're passing by it, we're in talks too to doing shuttle service between there and the Titan Stadium and Little Harpeth and the Titan Stadium. So we just want to kind of encompass that little area.
Thank you, Mr. Sizemore. And thank you, Mr. Garcia. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this issue? At this point, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Fields, have we gotten any feedback at all from Metro PD about the expansion of the rush hour operations?
In general conversations I've had with the police, and I expect them to be here, and I apologize for that, they didn't seem to have any issues with it. They had not expressed there been any problems, any tickets issued, anything.
I thought they had mentioned at the last meeting they didn't have a problem with it.
I think they did.
They said that they were flowing fast enough at rush hour that there wasn't a problem. So. Any input from the police about this expansion?
I also had a conversation. I don't think they had an issue with that. Again, I apologize. I probably should have brought notes with that. But I mean, it's a specific email. I asked them to respond. But the conversation I had with them, again, it's an area that is already limited in traffic to start with. And as I think the way they would approach it is probably crossing Jefferson Street there at where not Oldham, but where Cowan actually crosses. There's a red light there already, and that would be a natural way to go in avoiding North First Street as well as Dickerson Road.
And we've heard from, is it Michael Winters, the other owner? I feel like he's been in favor of expanding out toward that way and even shrinking the size of the entire area and focusing in more on where the LSVs operate most mostly.
Yeah, his general comments, I think, have been along those lines, saying, I don't need the neighborhoods. We're not looking at neighborhoods. What we're doing are entertainment areas, restaurants, entertainment facilities, hotels, and that sort of thing. And again, the issue of Hillsborough West End, there was no expansion issue there, and I'm trying to compare the maps, and I'm
Mr.
working
Sizemore, do you
on
have one of your maps with you?
For the boundaries?
Correct.
Yes.
Could I borrow it?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
How long of a hall pass did you actually give them?
For the operation to their office back and forth.
To go back and forth around the corridor of Topgolf?
My conversation with them was to explore it, to see it, to look at it, talk with them, to make sure that it would work, and to be able to come back and say, these are the issues that we saw, that we believe these would be the problems that we would see. Because I wanted you to have as best information. Again, the reason it was not included, because on that particular day, we were looking for boundaries of areas that normally what we would have done is taken I-65 to the north and use that as a boundary and loop it over to Dickerson Road. We didn't do that because everybody sitting at the table that particular day said there's no reason to go down there because it's all industrial, brick old blocks, concrete, storage. If you'll recall, that's where during the flood there was a great deal of storage of equipment. And as Mona Lisa, I think she had some events that lost some sound equipment, lights equipment, so forth and so on. So there was really nothing to go see. Unfortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side of growth you're on, there is a lot to go see and more on the way, assuming the development continues the way we are advised it's going to go.
And the other two companies are here too, and we're both under the same agreement that everything, the morale back for our drivers and everything else is.
Could we hear from them?
Yeah.
Rich J. McCaskey with Cruise, and I work with Michael. As far as what it's saying, Topgolf's a great place for us to drop off, pick up, do shuttle events from there. The only thing I would like to add is possibly opening up Church Street, which is right now blocked, for us from that little stretch from Rosa Parks to Elliston. If we can just open that up, and or maybe even Broadway up to 21st Avenue, which right now is off limits to us, but it's literally just red light, red light, red light. It doesn't really have any. It would help us a whole lot picking up all the people from the hotels in that area without having to go around.
We just have to be careful as we crack Pandora's box. We don't
Correct. Yeah.
completely open it up.
Right. Well, that's why in that particular area, I believe, is because it's red light, red light, red light, we're just hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. Don't do a lot of hurrying up in the golf cart. So we were definitely, be appreciative to get there. Just a little bit quicker way to get there. We've obviously found back roads to take to get to other destinations within our map, but it'd be a whole lot easier to, straight lines always a whole lot easier than going around, but.
More public safety than easy.
Correct.
Is what we're looking for.
Any other questions you guys have?
That's all right, thank you. Did you get your question answered about the map, Mr. McNeil?
Yeah, I think so. We're comparing where Topgolf is. And how far north are you wanting to go? Here, come here and just show me. What area? I know Topgolf's right here, so what street are you going to put the boundary on?
I believe it's just the next street, right?
Yeah.
There's the Google map of Topgolf.
So I know specifically how far we're moving it out.
That looks great.
So the bottom boundary would be Jefferson. So Little Hubbard's on Oldham. So Jefferson cuts right here. That's the
Right,
corner.
correct.
We're including the red light Mr. Fields referred. This is Cowan Court. These are the new development of a marina and a
Yeah.
hotel.
So you would expand it up to Cowan Court and straight over to where the current boundary is located?
Which would be Dickerson, River, Cowan Court, Dickerson,
Yeah.
which mainly we're just going to service this, but, and then it already includes the Oldham.
So what I'm doing is just moving this line up to Cowan Court, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what Mr. Winters was talking about is like this area, we're not servicing this area. The one thing
Now,
is
don't go any, you're now South Street's over here, correct? And you're needing a court, you need this to somehow open up for you,
yeah, our office is
right here
It's right
then,
here,
okay?
yeah.
And so what are we doing here that you're asking for? Or what are you asking for
I
here?
think it just encompasses these homes that are outside our
Oh,
office.
no, but specifically, what route are you asking for?
Regarding the headquarters area?
Yeah,
All right, so that's our headquarters,
Yeah.
9th Avenue.
right.
So we would encompass the 8th, and I believe this is Olympic.
You
These
want
are
to go
all
all
the-
that way down here?
Olympic is 2 blocks. These are all those new homes where I was talking about. Our headquarters is here. This is 8th.
This is 8th.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we come down, here's the courthouse, party foul, once we pass that
right.
intersection. So that's our office. I think this is Olympic.
Why do you want to go all the way to Olympic?
The new houses are down here.
So right here, there's a park, and then there's
I
a
thought we were
school.
just trying to help you get from
your
your
new office.
down
Again,
to
like I
town.
said, if we're operating heart surgery, we might as well. Otherwise, well, we may have to come back.
These Airbnbs right here call us to ask for a ride. They're like, hey, we saw your office, and I'm like, you have to walk down here right now. So at this
Well,
moment, so we're just
I'm-
encompassing these couple houses. It's like a couple rows of houses. It's like 4 on South Street.
So you're not on South Street, you're on 9th.
Yeah, South is on the back side of our building, and then our address is 9th, and it's Hawkins, 9th, and South. So South actually has homes on it.
There's South Street.
Yeah,
And I know South Street well there, so
those
you,
3-story homes. Yeah, it's just a row of
so
them.
you mind if I mark on this?
No, that's fine.
Why aren't we just doing this right here instead of a big expansion?
If we do that, we're excluding all these new places here. So it'd just be on that 90-degree of South Street.
Right, so what he's trying to tell
Oh,
you
well,
is,
so this is the avenue we go to, we don't even come down 8th. So all of our guys come at 12.
Let's see that again. According to this, you don't go past the interstate.
Right now,
That's the
yeah,
interstate,
right now,
yeah.
this is 12th here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
you
right-
want to go from 12th,
Right now, we come in and we
Over to
turn.
9th.
We turn on Hawkins and come down to our office, and that's the way we go in.
that's the corridor you temporarily.
What we were trying to do is get them a route out. Again, we were not talking operations. We were talking about making sure they didn't get a ticket by crossing into that neighborhood because they couldn't legally go
to
there.
go home, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 12th, right? So why not just 12th over here to where your office is located, right here?
Yes, that's fine. Now, it's just these homes right here that just are just asking for rides. And right now, we just tell them to walk down to our office. and get
Oh,
a
it's
ride.
not a terribly bad walk. What street would be, you're at 9th right here, what street would be closest to what the line I just drew there? South Street?
That's south.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Does anybody else, Mr. Sizemore?
Thank you. And we spoke with the police a couple times before coming here, and they had no complaints or no requests. Everything we've asked for, we've kind of vetted through them first before we even decide to even bring it to the council.
I was taking notice that you have somehow seemed to improve the relationships with the police by their comments last meeting, at the
Yep.
last meeting, other than the parking at the corners of intersections and occasionally at loading zones to drop off or pick up passengers.
Yeah, we're just trying to build our relationship back with the city. I mean, we provided a great service at the beginning, and then when we got reduced down to the 7 to 9, the 4 to 6, the morale, people were quitting. I mean, we were this close to shutting down, bankruptcy. I mean, we just couldn't afford it. So when people needed the rides, and now the morale's back. You know, us and the other companies are working together. Anything they need, you know, I don't see any more complaints going in between us, because if there's an issue with our driver or something, we'll work that out between ourselves and you know, let the driver go, because, you know, if I'm not aware of it, I need to be aware of it, because I'm trying to protect this company and everybody else that works for it, so.
I just chose to be proactive with Metro. I've addressed Metro Midtown Hills as well as Central, their ComStat meetings, just say, this is what we're doing, this is the hours that we're temporarily allowed. Captain Newbern and Midtown Precinct asked, as other areas come up, we discussed that as well, just being proactive with the police department.
Yeah,
And I will say, Mr. Garcia is a prolific writer
he is.
and certainly shares with me great details and long information
I say the same thing.
and friendly reminders
Yes.
and
We're in talks with a couple different companies. MTA is one of them, providing the last mile of transportation from the park bench on. We've been trying to merge our apps with theirs. So the MTA would actually pay us to take the passenger from the park bench on.
them. And then I think we've got 5 or 6 letters from businesses on Church Street that really would like us to be at that location. Really, it's just Church Street for us. Right now, we actually, to take someone to Tribe or Play, we have to cross the bridge, go behind the Crystals, and we drop them off at the back door, which when you tell somebody you have to drop them off the back door, it doesn't really bode so well with anybody in that area.
All right, here's my, assuming we were interested in doing this, here's my problem. I'm having difficulty formulating a motion that's going to be very specific as to what streets we're talking about here. We were looking at the map over here, and that's not really proper for 2 of us to be looking at one map. I wish you had a big blown-up map that I could sit here and say, okay, we expanded north to Cowan Court and from Dickerson Road over to the river. That seemed to be a simple little block in their area.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And we can bring back those maps if need be.
With your permission, one of the things that we did originally, if you'll recall, we did have the large map,
Right.
and we walked around it. Actually, I think I probably got a copy across the hall. What you could do that I think would achieve what I think you want to do is to be able to take the boundary as it stands today, where it now ends in North Nashville, is go down to Van Buren and basically take Van Buren, just cross the river at Van Buren, go north with the river, and then then cut over to Dixon Road and come right back down or to Dixon Road, because the boundary is now Dixon Road. In other words.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. But you think go north to Van Buren?
Yeah, it's already at Van Buren. Where it is, that's Van Buren.
Right.
And in Germantown, what you do is come across and just basically take the river and come back and just catch the northern boundary.
All the way up here, though?
Well, this is the entire development area. They may not want to go there now, but I can promise you, by the time. This is the area where they're talking about everything from bridges to multi-story.
I was thinking about just cutting right here.
Then you could take Van Buren directly across to Dixon Road and just take that chunk right there.
Yeah, there's construction crews that will be parking in that parking lot for the hotel build that's going on. So we just picked the closest street.
Is there a Van Buren in there?
Well, not on this side. The one on that side you'd want to take is. It's probably an unnamed street, to be really honest with you, because that's Cowan Street.
You said take Van Buren to what?
It crossed the river.
Maybe just a beeline from Van Buren
What
to
you do is you
Dickerson
just
Road.
basically take wherever Van Buren is.
It's going to look more like
You come
a
across the
box
river
instead
and pick
of
back over here.
how you were suggesting to
street
go
right there.
down and encompass the rest of that. So what they're suggesting is to go across the bridge over onto, I guess the closest street would be Cowan.
Yeah, you got Cowan, and then you got First, and then Dickerson.
Right, instead of going down, like you said, to let's get the appendix while we're in there
Well, I
operating.
think downward is already covered, because right now, the boundary is Jefferson. So Cross Point Church, Little Harpeth is in there. I'm just bringing it up as a matter of record, as we look at the quadrant, that, hey, we already can deliver people to Little Harpeth. But when Mr. Fields and I were discussing, just to make it a visual, and I met with Lieutenant Gilliland from Metro, and he suggested make it easier for police with a visual boundary than,
From the river to Cowan
as we
Court
learned
to
last
front
month, and
boundary.
scooters, they don't have the time to nick and pick, so it's like, let's make it easier. So when Lieutenant Gilliland and I, who runs the traffic with respect to this area, he said, look, the river western, and I'm just echoing what Mr. Fields said, the river, Cowan Court, we can come from Germantown that way, and then Dickerson being that other boundary, incorporating everything in, which would be First, which is kind of a crazy street, but then Cowan Street where that red light is, and then we already can service Little Harpeth, which is at the bottom, and everything south. But I just threw that in as a matter of like a pinpoint.
Just reference.
So
Yeah,
the
'cause
only
we
new
wouldn't-
change would be Cowan Court, Dickerson,
The river.
and moving
and
Jefferson.
On
Jefferson.
our maps, there are 2 Cowan Courts. Is that?
Cowan Street goes
Cowan
up
Street.
vertically, and Cowan Court's
There's
at the
literally
north.
2 Cowan.
Oh, there really?
Is it the one near the Cherokee Terminal or where Nashville Ready Mix?
The one near Cherokee.
Okay, so it's the southern, because there's a Cowan Court up here
Yeah.
too.
The Cherokee is the location for the new development, I think, that's coming.
Top Golf's down here, right? Is that the arena?
I'm guessing. Yes.
I think
But we won't be-
that might be a driveway.
We won't be going up Dickerson. We won't be going up Dickerson, so, no.
I was considering the common court, I didn't know there was two. The one nearest Cherokee Terminal.
Yeah.
I think that's just a driveway into those businesses.
I'll call it the southernmost Cowan Court.
There may be a third somewhere else in the county.
Yeah, and we're not asking to go up Dickerson Road, so that's not the issue. So we just wanted to encompass Topgolf, and that's it. It's better to have a visual boundary in a street name.
Or,
Are you prepared to close the public, did we close the public?
Yes, we've closed the public hearing.
Okay.
Oh, there was one other company that wanted to speak.
We've closed the hearing.
Sorry.
I'd like to get a motion so we can move on.
okay, I make a motion, I would like to take these one at a time. I'll make a motion on the first one pertaining to Topgolf that we expand the border north to the southernmost Cowan Court and from the river to Dickerson Road as a northern boundary there.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I believe that leaves the
To their office.
office and then the rush hour operations.
I make a motion that we expand the boundary from 12th along South Street to whatever the eastern side boundary is there to allow access to their headquarters back to the Gulch and other areas. I apologize.
12?
Well, they currently are at 12th.
Okay.
So running what I would call east and west along South Street to 9th, and then back north to the current boundary.
That goes to 8th.
8th?
Yeah.
Okay. All the way.
9th is just a tiny, tiny
All right.
road that just turn right.
So the current boundary is at 8th.
Yes.
All right, just for clarification, I make a motion to expand the boundary from 12th on South Street over to 9th, and then, I'm sorry, over to 8th, and then back north to the current location.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Got
passes.
that.
Shower traffic.
And all that's left then would be anything you may or may not do on time. And then all that'll be left is any issue on time of operation.
What are they asking for?
As far as you can tell, everything's been fine with that.
The police had no complaints, and they were one of the drivers. In the study, there was no resistance in the study as well,
What
for
specifically?
the low-speed vehicles.
All right, what specifically is the time frame we would be expanding?
At this time, they're restricted from 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening. Since the September meeting, you allow them to operate during those two time periods.
Just on weekdays? Just on weekdays?
Yeah, those were only weekday restrictions to start with. They were rush hour restrictions.
Make a motion that we lift the time restraints for rush hour traffic.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Wait. That's indefinite?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
it's been temporary. So.
right. That's fine.
Next, we have a hearing on proposed SUMD rules for inclement weather usage and violation definition. Mr. Fields.
In our last meeting, one of the things that we discussed was what is a violation? And how does the violation of SUMDs, again commonly called scooters, also electric bicycles, what is a violation as it reflects on the company, individual violations, that sort of thing. So legal, mostly legal, but legal and I visited and talked, and Ms. Costonis has developed what a rule could be. In addition, on inclement weather, we felt like we needed to, as the ordinance allows, make sure that it's clear when they can operate, and as you'd see, mostly it's frozen. It's the frozen precipitation that we were most concerned about. I would ask Ms. Costonis, if when you're ready for your explanation, I would prefer that she explain it.
And for our other modes of transportation that we oversee, Mr. Fields, I'm concerned about having this cumbersome definition of a violation, because I don't believe we have definitions of violations in the other sections, do we?
So I'm gonna clarify that a little bit. So this definition of violation is not for the purposes of disciplinary action. This is only for the context of what we discussed last month, which was when you all have to make that prerequisite finding before you allow them to jump up to a higher number of fleet vehicles, SUMDs. So that there were 3 criteria that you had to find before they were allowed to make that jump up. And one of them was that they had no more than a certain threshold level of violations, and you found that number was 20 violations per year. So there was discussion in that context that made us realize that we weren't really clear what a violation meant in that context. So it's only limited to that context that this definition would be used. And so what we were endeavoring to do was to try to give them some due process and like an ability to respond before a determination that a violation occurred was made, but not the level of due process that you would have in a disciplinary matter where you're looking to actually impose a suspension or a revocation of a certificate. This is what we came up with. There was also a feeling that users commit violations very often, and there was a question of to what degree those violations of the users should be attributed to the certificate holders, the companies. And so that's where we came up with 2B, where it says that, we would maybe set a number per month that would lead to a rebuttable presumption that the company is failing in its responsibility to instruct and educate its users, which is one of the requirements on the company. And so that is blank at this point in terms of what number of user violations per month per company would lead to such a rebuttable presumption. So that is a blank that Mr. Fields and I would ask you all to fill in.
I think the great challenge, as we discussed last week, there are going to be some things that riders do. In fact, right now, I just showed Ms. Costonis the picture that was just provided, and the SUMD operators will appreciate this. There is a SUMD now perched on the side of the Siegenthaler Bridge, ready to do whatever it does. And I'm confident the company does not want it there, nor would they condone it. And it's probably being retrieved. One of the Sams is saying, I'm going after it right now. He's already seen it. But anyway, not to be light on it, the truth of the matter is, we know that the company, there are certain things the company has to do, and we want to make sure they're doing it. And if they're not, then we think that's one thing. We also know there's other issues of riders are going to do things. We also expect the company to be responsible for the riders, but there are going to be things that it's almost impossible to, because we know they would not condone some of the things that we've had happen lately, especially those that have resulted in accidents.
Let me make one other clarification that may reassure the Commission to some degree. This criteria and this definition is not going to be something that we're going to be asking you to apply. This is kind of direction from you to staff, because staff will be making the determination of the number of violations. And so when we have the opportunity to have a hearing where one of the companies wants to go up to a higher level of fleet expansion in terms of number of SUMDs, and they come before you to ask for the opportunity to do that, and they want to show that they have the 3 prerequisite criteria to earn that privilege, then Mr. Fields can verify the number of violations so that you can compare that to your statistic of 20 per year. So he would be or he and his staff would be applying this formula or definition, I guess, or process, rather than you all having to do that yourselves. So that would just be the process that he would use to determine whether there have in fact been whether there has in fact been a violation that should count toward that 20 per year.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this issue regarding the proposed violation definition or the proposed inclement weather usage rule? You don't have to speak if you don't want to. I just wanted to elicit any comments or suggestions.
Sure. Just briefly.
Introduce yourself.
I'm the Director of Government Relations for BIRD. Billy and I met about this last week. We have our own procedures, which I think a lot of them are sort of mirrored in what's been suggested. But we have both procedures for when it's rainy, when it's snow and ice. We have essentially have this zero tolerance in snow and ice. We have the ability not only to shut things down immediately in terms of allowing rides. We have the ability to sort of pull the fleet back early. We have the ability to delay putting the fleet out in the mornings, or we can cancel the entire day. And so we're learning as we go. It's our first winter as a company, but we're going to be pretty conservative on those calls. I had to make one earlier today in consultation with our weather team, but it's something that we take very seriously. Both in terms of the safety of our riders, safety of the streets, the ability for Public Works to get out and make sure the streets are clear.
Just as a corollary to this inclement weather rule that we're looking at, just from a personal experience, one of the things I'm noticing with the scooters is at night they are very difficult to see, particularly from the side. It's not so hard to see them when they're like coming at you or you're behind them. Mm-hmm. But on the side, they're really hard to see because most passenger or drivers or whatever you call them, they're not wearing reflective clothing or anything. So is there anything that Bird and Lime can do to make the scooters more reflective on the side?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up that point. So I can speak on behalf of Bird, right? So the first thing we do, we cut off rides at 9 o'clock. Obviously, there's still a few hours of darkness, particularly this time of year. I think we're on our sixth iteration of the actual Bird scooter model, and we're slowly sort of working out the older models and bringing in the newer ones. The newer ones have both reflectors down the side, even lights that come on the side. There's lights underneath that glow. I'm actually really pretty impressed. And I think if you've seen the newer models, they're much more durable. They're much more, they're just much easier to see in terms of, lights on the front, lights on the rear, reflectors on the side, and even the brake lights, which are sort of either side, which you can see both from the side and the rear, which are lit up at all times and then flash when someone's actually hitting the brake. I'm not familiar with what the other companies' models do, but we're certainly, as we've become more of a, transportation solution for people in our evolution, we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to make sure that we're highly visible to both drivers and pedestrians.
So the models you were talking about, is that just so of the 1,000 you have, how many are the newer models versus the older ones that don't have as much light?
I'll see if I can find that answer. I don't actually, and honestly, it's almost changing on a daily basis because as the older models either wear down or have a mechanical problem, they are replaced with the brand new model. I mean, I know, for instance, when we had our latest shipment in, they were all, the brand new model. So, and those are, they are lit up big time.
Okay. Shipment of how many?
This was, this was our last increase. This would have been an additional 250 birds. This was a couple
of
of
light
months.
and everything?
Yes, yes. But our initial models, to your point, did not have great lighting on this that was visible from the side. And so we've made sure that in future iterations, that they're much more visible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this issue? At this point, we'll close the public hearing so the commission can deliberate regarding the proposed rules for a definition, for a violation definition or explanation for 12.62.0804.b and the proposed inclement weather rule.
Just so you know, I'm recusing myself from this conversation.
All right. Just so I can clarify, can you give a reason why you're recusing yourself?
Yes, I work at a university, and we have had a conversation with another scooter company about the possibility of them having a location on our campus.
Okay.
So are we trying to set a number of incidences for future reference to say that this is a guideline for increase, or just a guideline for any consideration for the SUMDs?
So it's only a guideline for increase for SUMDs. This applies exclusively to SUMDs. There's no other type of...
And only for increase?
Yes.
Not
and
for
only in the
any
context
additional-
of when they come before you to show that they've met those prerequisites to have an increase in their fleet size.
Do we have any information, because I know that they just don't operate here in Metro Nashville, they actually operate in other cities, as a guideline that they use as far as incidences?
I don't know that there is anything like that.
We think we're unique in the way this has been
Handled?
instituted in Nashville, we think.
Yeah, so
So no
what we were looking
guidelines.
at is, like, one violation by one person, clearly, it's hard to say whether that person is just somebody who's not gonna follow any rules that they're given, no matter what, or, you know, whether that's really a failure to instruct and educate. At some point, you know, I think you have kind of a critical mass of user violations where it seems more fair to impute that to the company, that they are not educating and instructing their users adequately, so that they will know not to ride on sidewalks in the business districts, so that they will know that they can't leave a scooter parked blocking the entire sidewalk, so that there's no accessibility for disabled persons. The question, I guess, like, you set the threshold of 20 violations per month last year for 20 violations per year, excuse me, for the threshold overall. Now we're saying, in terms of determining what amounts to a violation that you're actually going to hold against the company itself, would there be some, like, critical mass number of user violations that where we would actually conclude that there was a violation of the obligation?
We're talking
to-
accidents?
No. The examples that I gave some examples so that we'd have an idea, like riding scooters, if you want violations that are substantiated by some degree of evidence, unless the person who is testifying about it is either a TLC inspector, a police officer, or public works employee. And so assuming that they're substantiated by evidence, that they're from third parties, because, you know, we get in a fair number of complaints. These would be ones with photos of users riding scooters that are visibly identifiable as the certificate holders on sidewalks in areas that meet the definition of a business district. So it would have to be clear from the photo where it was taken that it was in a business district. And photos of scooters parked in prohibited areas such as greenways or sidewalks that don't have a frontage or furnishing zone, or where that frontage or furnishing zone is less than 3 feet wide, or otherwise blocking the accessible path of pedestrian travel on a sidewalk. So those are things that are already, that are prohibited by the code ordinance that council passed. And it's just like, at what point do those user violations, which those users could be individually cited for, at what point do we actually conclude that there's a sufficient amount of them, that it's really not just the users, it's the company failing to educate and instruct its customers?
Or it could go to the other direction. For instance, in 1262.050, when it talks about operations, in L, it says permitted operators shall respond to reports of incorrectly parked SUMDs, requests for rebalancing, requests for relocations, and they have to take corrective action within 48 hours.
That's right. So there's some violations where it's clear that you can immediately hold the company responsible. Like, it's their responsibility to go rebalance a scooter after they've been notified that it's parked improperly. So if they don't do that within the time period set out in the code ordinance, then they're responsible directly. If they have one of their employees or agent representatives set out scooters in the morning in an improper location, then they're directly responsible for that. So there can be things that we can, and all of these examples are including but not limited to. They're just, so that we can kind of have an idea of what we're talking about. But there certainly are things that the companies specifically have to do to comply with directly, but a lot of what's being reported to us and to the police testified about at the last meeting, are really user violations. And so that's the trickier question, is at what point do you attribute those to a failure on the part of the company to instruct and educate its users?
I missed last meeting, and I apologize for that. Is there a maximum number in the fleets right now? What is it? Like, do we limit?
1,000 per company right now.
That's a disputed issue. I can go into that in a little more detail too. So every company is allowed to have 500 to start out with. After the first month, they can go up to 750, and there was a dispute between myself and between, I believe it was actually Lime's representative, as to whether when you go up from the 50 to the 750, which they're theoretically allowed to do after the first month of operation, they have to meet those 3 criteria. My conclusion, and that of pretty much everybody on the Metro side of things, including the council members who sponsored the ordinances, is that they do. The attorneys for Lime were arguing contrary to that position at last month's meeting. So both Bird and Lime have, as I understand it, gone ahead and jumped up to the 1,000 number that they're allowed in the 3rd month of operation. And to date, we haven't yet had a hearing to determine whether they have met those prerequisite criteria. So part of it is that we kind of have to work out the kinks in how we're going to do that. And the first step was to determine how many violations they're allowed to have per year, and the second was to nail down what is a violation.
Well, Ms. Costonis, I think the proposed violation definition that you have prepared for us, I think, is helpful, and I appreciate your explanation, and how this is really only for purposes of whether or not a company is eligible and under a certain threshold of, quote, violations before they're asked to come and seek additional permits for scooters. I also note that this language is helpful not just to the commission but also to the staff, so when it's reviewing complaints and making determination, without having to necessarily come to the commission for an actual violation where we would impose disciplinary action, but solely for purposes of deciding whether they have met the threshold for seeking additional permits. This actually gives some very clear direction to the staff in making that determination. I would be in favor of approving this violation definition for purposes of implementing 12.62.0804B.
Do we need to set a number where it says insert number, for instance, 25 a month?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'd make a recommendation that we adopt the 25 per month. It's not a motion yet or anything, but it's just throwing it out there, 25 a month.
Be a good starting point.
If you chose to do that, if someone chooses to make a motion, you could actually include that in the motion rather than make separate ones. You could just include that in whatever motion, if a motion comes forward.
I would make a motion at this time for adoption of the violation definition provided to us by Metro Legal for 12.62.0804.B, and to include in subsection 2B 25 to be the number for critical mass.
I second that motion.
Mr. McNally, just a point of clarification, you mean 25 per month?
I meant to say 25 per month.
Do you want to reissue your second, Mr. Carr?
I would like to reissue my second. My ears are bad. I'm reading it, so I thought that's what you said.
All those in favor?
What did I say?
Aye.
Motion passes.
What did I say?
I'm reading it, so I thought you said it.
Mr. McNally, just to clarify, you'd only said 25, not 25 per
Okay.
month. So-
Thank you. Okay.
All right, and then we also have the proposed inclement weather rule to
Make a
review.
motion to pass that rule.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is under wrecker and towing services. We've been asked to review the driver application for Wayman Tharp.
Mr. Tharp, this is a relatively unusual case from my perspective. Mr. Tharp has some charges. He was placed on probation. I am concerned about the probation, the time period, about when he was placed on probation, when he left probation. The commission has exercised some expertise with that, and I wanted to bring that to you for your review.
Mr. Tharp, are you still currently on probation?
No, sir, I'm not. Ain't been on probation since July 5th of last year.
So what's the rule say about, didn't we go over this once?
That's the.
As long as they're off probation?
Each applicant for a record driver permit shall be signed, the driver permit shall be signed by the applicant and shall be duly tested and so forth. An applicant shall be disqualified if the applicant has been convicted, pled guilty, placed on probation or parole, pleaded nolo contendere, been released from incarceration within a period of 5 years prior to the date of application.
You were released from probation last year?
Yes, sir, last year.
And that's sort of where we are. Parts of the ordinances, and I'll look back over to legal, talks about probation being placed upon, and again, you'll recall the.
There are different rules in some of the other chapters regarding other types of vehicles. Are records the only one where the rule on the criminal disqualifications is actually in the rules as opposed to in the code provision
It's never been amended into the ordinance.
So it just says being placed on probation within 5 years, not off probation within 5 years.
Correct.
Yes.
So he's qualified.
But again, I want to make sure that you have, anytime we have something that along these lines, I want to make sure that y'all had opportunity at it.
I do note that we have some inconsistencies in other areas where we said they have to be off probation, supervised release, or whatever for the past 5 years, and we've never looked at this one here.
Yeah, that's correct.
You got a job with somebody?
As of now, I do with the tow pros, but that's what I'm waiting on is this here. So this right here determine if I get it or not. I mean, I got the job, it's just y'all giving me the approval, and I can start.
And your ag assault was, your conviction was May of 2011.
Yes, sir.
Did you plead guilty or go to trial?
Actually, it was, how can you say, deferment. It's non-plea. So I didn't plead. My lawyer actually signed my name.
Yeah.
He did it as a best interest plea. So that's
Okay.
basically what it is. My signature is not on any paperwork that was originally filed.
Who are you supposed to have assaulted and how? Just what is the prosecution's theory against you?
Prosecution's theory is that I assaulted a young lady and said with a weapon, but I never even
What was the weapon they were alleging?
saying a gun.
Okay. And you've had a probation violation?
Yes, sir, I did. Probation violation basically wasn't really accurate.
All right, they didn't extend your probation with that probation violation?
No, sir. I just had it to the date of release me. That was it.
All right, because it seems to me if it's May of 2011, you were placed on 7 years probation, you'd be coming off May of 2018.
It was 6 years probation, not 7.
Okay. Other than the one violation in February 2017, did you comply with probation otherwise?
Yes, sir. Other than that, yes, sir, I have.
And you're telling me for sure you have a job right now with Total?
Yes, sir, I do. They're just waiting on you guys.
Make a motion to approve this application?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have another passenger vehicle for hire application by April K. Bonds. Mr. Fields?
In making your application, she failed to list a 2013 assault, a 2010 possession of a controlled substance, a 2006 passing a worthless check, and a 1997 theft by taking. She will also have an email that came today from the owner of the company, said she's aware of her background and would like to hire her if the commission issues a permit.
What company is that?
QB Connections Limited Liability Corporation.
What will you be driving?
A party bus.
Okay. Mr. Fields, I may have missed it. What was your concern on this one?
The only concern, she failed to list.
Oh, okay, that's all.
They were just, she listed several things, but she failed to list those that I
Yeah.
outlined.
Oh, Jesus, I gotta quit doing that. Exactly.
Two, yeah.
So what was the outcome of your assault charge in 2013?
It's currently expunged. I got it expunged off my record from Williamson County.
My astonishment was only that I didn't think anything was ever expunged in Williamson County. So. Why'd you fail to report or to add these?
I didn't remember, I didn't even know that I had that assault on me. I had a theft because I was with a girl that was stealing, and she pushed the loss prevention person, and we both got charged with it, but I really forgot about the assault because, and the rest of the things that was on there, it was so long ago, I couldn't remember everything that was on my record. So I had to get a copy of my report myself and, pay for a copy and reapply and list everything.
Do you know the owner? Are you friends with the owner of QB?
I've been knowing her for a while.
And how do you know her?
We're from the same place.
And you wrote on here, it may be more, but I can't think of
Anything on my first application?
Yeah.
I did.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have a other passenger vehicle for hire application by Yellow Limo to add, excuse me, it's not an application, it's a request to add Ali Al Sarafi as partner.
Anytime an application is changed, ownership is changed or modified, the commission has to take action to approve or disapprove. Everything's in order.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have a request by Renaissance Limo to add Asias Tefera as a partner.
It's the same issue. In order to make a change, the commission has to consider it.
It's all in order? Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We also have a request by Exclusive Transportation to take notice of their address change.
Again, very, very similar. In order to make a change of address or move a headquarters, the commission has to consider it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We also have several company applications for other passenger vehicles for hire. Any reason not to take these up altogether?
Absolutely
The first
not.
is Achilles Transportation, Inc. We have Courtesy Limousine Service and Medical Transport, Avand Limo Service, and LNC Nashville.
I would make a motion to approve the 4 that were just listed by the chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we have any other business?
We have our
Mr.
election.
Fields?
Maybe a couple of pieces. One, you will note that one of your members is not present today, Tom Turner. Tom Turner, this is the first time that Mr. Turner has not been on the Transportation License Commission in several years. He has, the mayor has chosen to appoint him to a different commission, and he has left the commission. So I wanted to make sure that was noted in the record and give you an opportunity to say what a great guy he is if you thought he was. And so I did want to make that note. You will be getting a new member for the January meeting.
Thank you. I would like to say that Mr. Turner has served on this commission for several years, longer than I have, and he's been very dedicated, rarely missed any of our meetings, and I really appreciated his presence on the commission.
I second that.
I concur.
And Mr. Turner was the vice chair. We are, the fourth thing on the agenda would be consider a vice chair. You will need a vice chair. It would be appropriate for someone for the commission to consider who might be a vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner McNally to serve as vice chair.
I'd like to second that nomination.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. You okay with that, Mr. McNally?
May it be noted that I recuse myself from voting.
4-0-1.
And it looks like there's one bit of other business.
Yeah, we need to move our meeting date.
Normally, you would meet on the fourth Thursday of the month. That changes in November and December. Unfortunately, we need to meet on the Wednesday prior to, so it'll be Wednesday, January the 23rd, in order to meet in this room. And the room's available. Channel 3 and Metro 3 has said they would be happy to be here with us. So with your approval, we would do that. We'll also notice the meeting.
And I've mentioned before that there is a little bit more strict agenda requirement in terms of notice with specially set meetings than with regularly scheduled meetings, but that shouldn't be a problem. Our agendas are usually very specific in terms of the items that they list anyway, so as long as we do it pretty much our usual way, we should be fine.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
Mm-hmm.
Move to the January meeting to Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019.
Second.
That motion, Vice Chair.
All those in favor? Motion
I'm gonna be
passes.
paying for it forever, aren't I?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.